The meeting now comes to order. If you will, please join us as Vice Chairman Jerry Langley does the invocation, and Commissioner Waters will do our pledge. Please stand and join us, please.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we are grateful and thankful for this very moment in time. We are grateful that you have allowed us to assemble here in this place. God, now we just ask for your guidance in dealing with your people, and we'll forever give your name the glory, the honor, and the praise. And it's only in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. Just a bit of housekeeping. If you have a cell phone, please either turn it off or put it in the silence mode. If you, huh? And there you go. I appreciate that. Thank you. Does any commissioner have any conflict of interest on any item that's on the agenda tonight? Hearing none, we'll move forward. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? If not, I'll...
Item that I had, where is it? Okay. Item that I added to the agenda. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the agenda, please raise your right hand. 6-0, Katie. Thank you. Okay, we're up to items for presentation. The first one, we're very honored tonight to have Jessica Burnham join us from the Beaufort High Partnership for Children, giving out Governor's Service Awards.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time. This is a great privilege and honor to recognize our volunteers in our local community. And I just want to say, as we call up your name, if you will come and stay seated up front, we would like to take a group picture at the end. The first person we would like to recognize, or the first couple, is Mr. and Mrs. Harvey Gardner. 6 years ago, Team Infinity was created by the Gardners to model integrity, character, and accountability to young men through a team basketball ministry. It was since expanded to a 4-team ministry, which includes a women's team now. The Gardners are the founders to this organization and the backbone of a nonprofit organization, all while working a full-time job and raising 3 kids of their own, as well as a couple of their godchildren. Team Infinity Basketball utilizes community events as opportunities for the students to volunteer to give young people the opportunity to serve within their community. The Gardners are shaping the lives of young people and their families through this organization. Thank you, Gardners, for your contribution to our community. The next person we would like to recognize is Deb Riles. Deb, if you will come forward. Deb Riles has served Beaufort and surrounding North Carolina counties in over a lifetime of service. Deb has made volunteering a cornerstone of her personal commitment to serve, from serving as a mentor to at-risk mothers and children in Durham, Pitt, and Beaufort counties. Deb was a driving force behind the establishment of Ruth's House and continues to reach out in many other areas to bring about positive change in her community. Thank you, Deb. The next person we would like to call up is Barbara Jones. For the past 20 years, Ms. Jones has been an advocate for people living in their rural community, especially the children and families of the local school. Ms. Jones served as a chairperson for the S.W. Snowden Bright Futures Committee, where she has fundraised through collecting donations through the Coke Rewards Program, canned soda tabs for Ronald McDonald House. She single-handedly established and continues to honor veterans of the community each year with a breakfast and school programs that ensures the veterans with mobility issues are able to attend. Ms. Jones makes each child her own and has always put the welfare of other beings before herself. Thank you for your service. Don and Margie Starks are the next couple we'd like to call up. As a contributor of the arts, Don and Margie Starks volunteered and constructed one of Belhaven's most visited and needed tourist attraction, the toy train display. The town of Belhaven is one of the most economically distressed communities in Beaufort County, and projects of this nature are very important to educate our youth about small towns and the transportation industry. Don and Margie devoted countless hours organizing and constructing the toy train display, which stimulates a real-life miniature village by the water with tiny people at work. The Starts remind us that we can impact our community one rail at a time, and that miniature projects can make a gigantic memory for many families who visit every year. Thank you, Don and Margie Starts, for your service. The next person we would like to call up is Chrislyn Wetterland. In the wake of the destruction left behind by Hurricane Florence in September 2018, Chrislyn, chef and owner of Carry Out by Chrislyn in Washington, North Carolina, came to rescue one meal at a time. The first responders and residents affected by the devastating storm of hurricane this fall. With a servant's heart, Chrislyn rallied the support of the community, volunteers, and donors who joined her in preparing and serving and giving 13,081 meals from September 15th until December 18th. Chrislyn actually was chosen as a medallion winner at Chrislyn was actually chosen as a medallion winner and was recognized in a special banquet at the governor's office. So we have a medallion to actually present to you, Chrislyn. In close, I would like to say this is a great honor. You guys were nominated by members of your community, and you stand before us because of that reason. You actually were chosen and honored by the governor's office, so we appreciate your time and dedication that you give back to our communities. We appreciate all your time and help. Thank you, Jerry.
Moving along on our presentation, we have Jim Madison to come up and talk to us.
Can you hear me okay? Well, let's see, I picked a bad time because, we have such good news to start with, and then I got to give you bad news about something. But I picked a good time for public awareness, so I'll get the message out. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about measles, the outbreak that's occurring, and some vaccine preventable disease information. I presented this to the Board of Health last time, and then they asked me to come give this to y'all as well. So this is an opportunity for me to get some public awareness out about this. But if you know, measles is a virus that's pretty contagious. As a matter of fact, it's the most contagious virus known to man. Oftentimes, about 2 weeks after exposure, somebody gets a high fever, a cough, runny nose, red, watery eyes, and then all of a sudden a rash breaks out, and then they're contagious for a while. And like I said, it's one of the most contagious diseases out there. So it's a big public health concern. The vaccine came out in 1963, so you can see from the graph up here that once the vaccine came out, in the United States, numbers went from about 500,000 a year reportable diseases of measles down to about 100 per year of reportable cases. And so the vaccine was shown to be very effective in eliminating the disease. And this is reportable cases. Prior to 1963, probably many cases were not actually reported to the medical system. So you see that it had a positive impact on the cases. This just shows the last 10 years of the disease in the United States. So you can see that this year is the worst that we've had since we declared the measles eliminated in the United States. And by eliminated, they mean there's no endemic cases of measles in the United States. So far, for this year, we've got 981 cases, so the last bar in there, and we're only 5 months into the year. So the expectation is that we're going to exceed this by quite a bit. Here you can see the states that have reported cases. They're following about 10 separate clusters that are occurring throughout the United States. Most of them are occurring in New York. Of those cases that have been followed, 90% are unvaccinated and 6% are unknown status on their vaccination. No cases have been reported yet in North Carolina. But most everybody in the state is preparing for North Carolina to have its first case sometime soon. So vaccinations are very important. And one thing I wanted to make sure I relayed to everybody is about herd immunity, because, from a public health perspective, we want to vaccinate individual people to protect them from the disease. But you also have a lot of people out there that can't receive the vaccinations for medical reasons. Their immune system is really not good because of the diseases, cancer, leukemia, a variety of immunodeficiencies that may be out there. And so herd immunity helps protect them from also getting the disease, in this case measles, that we're talking about. What it means is if everybody's vaccinated but those who can't receive it, the likelihood of them coming in contact with somebody that has the disease is minimal. So therefore they're protected in that sense. So what we strive for is 95+% of people vaccinated. You really want to be at 99% with something like measles, which is very contagious. But for most of the vaccines out there, we're talking about 95% vaccination rate. It's very important. So herd immunity is very important for me when I'm looking at the public health aspect of things. And so I was able to get the children's vaccination rates to show that in our public schools, we have 32 not vaccinated for various reasons. Mostly it's going to be for medical reasons and for religious reasons. So that means we have 99.51% coverage, which again is a very good rate and has good herd immunity for those few that cannot receive it. The private school numbers are a little bit more of a lower rate of concern from a public health perspective, and it's private schooling, so it could be home-based as well, where we have 30 of 850 not vaccinated for exemption reasons, which brings the herd immunity to 96.47. Still above 95%, not still a likelihood, but it's an increased probability. So if we were to have an outbreak, it would probably be in that setting. And then I just wanted to mention that there's other vaccine preventable diseases that we continue to monitor, which we worry about with vaccination rates. Some of the most common ones would be whooping cough, or pertussis, chickenpox, polio, mumps, meningococcal, and pneumococcal. Are there any questions?
Two questions. First question, the North Carolina public schools require that every student be immunized before entering school.
Either immunized or have an exemption on
Or have an
file.
exemption. Who enforces that?
The school, I think, monitors that information. They send it to the state.
The health department doesn't have anything to do with enforcing it.
Not enforcement. No.
Okay. The second thing is the nodes for the centers for this, from what I've been seeing, are places that have a lot of immigrants.
Well, immigrants might contribute to the population if they're unvaccinated. Measles, though, is a big one where efforts were done to immunize everybody. But you have high populations that do not believe in vaccinations, and you have certain pockets of areas that may have unvaccinated folks.
Yeah. Well, legal immigrants are required to have some kind of medical certificates.
Yes, sir.
Illegal immigrants do not have it, and from what I've seen, most of this is coming from centers with illegal immigrants.
Thank you, Jim. Courtney Hinchpath, our Emergency Service Director, is going to make a presentation now.
Thank you, Chairman Evans and Commissioners. I would like to just make a quick presentation to answer some questions that were asked during our budget session that was going on. 3 specific questions that will be answered as we look at today. Number one was, what was our basic call statistics or basic call numbers as we look at the last year? We're going to have that for 2 years. A comparison between the actual number of calls that we had and the number of calls billed, and then a specific target looking at overdoses over the last year. So you have in front of you a quick fact sheets front and back put on each one of your things, and you also have a copy of the presentation. So looking at the basic call statistics, we broke that in the 18-19 year and also the 17-18. The 17-18 is a complete year, a 12-month cycle from July 1st through June 30th. That would have been July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. When you look at the 18-19 statistics, the left-hand side of that column, that is July 1st, 2018 to May 1st of this year. So we don't have a complete year statistic in it, but it's as current as we can go. So you see all of the county's calls, every agency, and what they run. We did break our EMS units down specifically, the Beaufort County EMS piece, so you can see those numbers. So you see Beaufort County EMS calls. If you'll look at the second section where we compare EMS billing statistics with the numbers of calls, on your quick fact sheet, that'll be the next column that we look at. In 18-19, we had a total of 1,759 PCRs. That means that's how many dispatched calls we went to. However, that does not necessarily mean that's how many patients or billable patients we would see. You'll see beside that, we had 467 non-billable calls. And those non-billable calls could be from a Medic 4 response. Any call on the south side of the river almost any call gets a Medic 4 response, our QRV on the south side. That billing is being done in whichever agency is transporting that unit. So that's a big number of the 467. Also, there's treatment, no transports, or patient refusals, no patient found, or DOAs. So billable calls, you see we had 1,292 in this current year that we're in, and actual bills issued by Collington, 1,302. And we see a slight variance in that, and we think that is attributed to the DOAs. There's not a charge in transportation if we have a DOA. Continuing looking, if you look at our next column, or 17-18 statistics, you see 2,044 total calls, again, non-billable calls being 566. I want to bring your attention to the bottom of these two comparisons. Overall, in our 18-19, our current year where we are in EMS billing, we are collecting on an average of $335.81 per call. That's at 65.81% collection rate. That is down from the previous years you look at it, but we're dealing with real data, right now data. And so these are calls that were just run in the last 30 days, and the bill has just gone out, and we usually collect about 3 months behind on those bills that come out. So we'll see that number, we should see that number rise. If you look at the 17-18, you will see that the collection trip rate was $360.09 with a collection rate of about 71% when you look at that revenue. I would like to say some things that have been implemented by county staff for collection improvement. First of all, we do third-party contracting through a billing agency, and we have certainly developed stronger ties with that agency. Miss Anita and all of her staff in finance have done a tremendous job in working with them along with our staff themselves, and just having a quick phone call, anything we need to be able to work through them. In the last year, we initiated debt set-off. We've also initiated countywide billing. That was a large task in itself, but it allowed us, once we initiated countywide billing, to go after Medicaid cost reimbursement program. This is Medicaid monies that are left at the end of the year unused. Anita was able to go back and apply for 2 years of that, her and her staff. We've not heard the outcome of that, but we have applied for that money. Also, we have included now geocoding, which gives us accurate mileage for reimbursement. And EMS specific has done some internal improvements to charting. We now enter the insurance information ourselves on our charts versus before we would leave a sheet that would have to be collected at the hospital and data transferred over. The EMS billing company asked us to do that to improve on our collection rate. We were able to do that for them. When you look at most frequent calls that we look at over the last 2 years, I'll give you the top 5. You see those in your presentation. Sick person, fall victims, traffic accidents, chest pains, and breathing problems are the top 5 types of calls, what we would say would be the chief complainer calls that we go to, and they take up 58% of our total call volume when we look at that. And then when we look specific to overdose statistics, I'm looking at our current year, 18-19, all overdoses you see from these agencies that are listed. Pinetown and Pamlico Beach, you'll see, are not listed in there. It's because their calls end up with our paramedic on it and originate in a different way. So they're listed in these other numbers, okay? So with that, opioid specific, that we were able to track down opioid specific, you see the calls on the right. So Aurora EMS with 1, Beaufort County EMS 1, Broad Creek 4, Chocowinity EMS 15, and Washington EMS 3. I would like to say in this reporting, we do not have software capabilities that allows us just to do a quick in and out to get this information. This information is going through QA and looking at reports and really dropping down to that. So this is the information we were able to come up with. Be glad to answer any questions you may have from these numbers.
Carney, looking at the data here, where is the most used opioids?
Well,
last time when we had our meeting at the community college, right, we had it broke down in areas that was most used. Where is it now?
So if we go by just EMS department, Chocowinity EMS is running the most of those calls. And I would like to say, these numbers are not to say that you see in the graph back on the opioid use itself on this presentation chart that I have up for you. These are opioid-specific calls.
Okay.
So there's other calls that could have opioids included with them, but that wasn't the chief complaint or that wasn't the originator of what was taking place with that patient. So there's many other patients that may be on opioids. They may be on prescribed medicines that can do that, but these are calls specific to the opioid overdose.
Now, is it possible that with our system, some of these overlapping calls, it just said that the heaviest concentration was Chocowinity. Sometimes Washington goes out of the captured area. Sometimes Broad Creek goes out.
That is correct, and I don't have the data in front of you to show the actual location of those calls. It is something I could get for you if you'd like to see.
Is there any way do we do any tracking? The reason I asked, we was in Asheville, we was talking about these opioid uses Saturday, and we was also talking about how many of these pills that are being prescribed to people. And that was a way I didn't take the time to see what was being done in Beaufort County. Thank you.
Our big spike, if I may add, our big spike last year, we know was because of the opioid use with carfentanil being added in. We do believe education's taken a big piece of that. We think law enforcement efforts have taken a big piece in correcting that. and an understanding by individuals. Also, the availability of Narcan, not just from an EMS system. There may be things out there that we don't get called for now because they're able to self-administer. A family member may be able to self-administer. Either way, we're saving lives in what we're looking at.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Richardson.
I understand Narcan, you can get it with a prescription by going to the druggist and take a prescription from a doctor, and you can get it. So there may be self-providers out there doing this.
I believe I'm correct, and Glenn, you correct me if I get off here, but the state medical examiner has issued a standing order where anybody can go to a pharmacy now and buy Narcan under his order for that, so to make it available for individuals.
Well, I checked. I wasn't checking for myself, but
That's your story.
but they did. The pharmacist did tell me you had to have a prescription in order to get it. I mean,
Yeah.
so
I thought
we need to get that sorted out.
Yeah, because I thought that had been issued. I'll check on that.
They told me I needed a prescription.
Okay.
Commissioner Waters.
Carney, I just want to make sure I understand these numbers. 18-19 is for 10 months, and 17-18 is for 12 months.
That is correct.
Okay. Next question. When you look at the collection per trip,
It's actually 9 months, just for clarity on the numbers, because our numbers have risen.
that's right, I see July. I was thinking
Yes,
it was June.
No, you're right. I'm incorrect there. You're
Okay.
right, 10 months. Sorry
All right.
about that.
The collection per trip, do you know what the industry number looks like there? You are in need of one?
Industry number is around 310 to 315.
Okay.
So we're slightly above the industry normal collection of calls.
One more question.
Yes.
Any idea why that number is going down from the previous year, 360 to 335? Is that Medicare reimbursement rate decline?
Since I've given you current year statistics, you got to think of the time for the
I
bill
got
to
you.
even go out and then come back in. It's usually collected 2 to 3 months behind.
I got you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carney.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Need a motion to go into public hearing? Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. Think so. Nola Ramos, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys? This public hearing is for a petition to name a private road. This is an existing 700-foot long easement, which was recorded in 1999. It's located off of U.S. Highway 17 South in southern Beaufort County. This easement is approximately 550 feet from the intersection of U.S. Highway 17 South and Frederick Road, which is south of Chocowinity jurisdiction. Ads were run in the Washington Daily News on May 21st and 28th. The petition was submitted by Ronald Huss, who has 4 lots, and also William Cowart, who has 1 lot off of the easement. The road name petition was triggered by a request for a 3rd address along the easement. 3 road names have been proposed. In order of preference, they are Yonder Lane, Honeybee Lane, and Harvest Lane. The first choice presented a sound alike, and staff is recommending Honeybee Lane. Are there any questions?
Hang on. Okay, this is open to public comment. Does anybody want any input on?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, need a motion to go into public hearing for item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Let's see.
Good evening.
Martin?
This public hearing is to receive comments on a proposed economic development performance grant to Project Mojo. Project Mojo designs and manufactures energy-efficient motor launches. The company proposes to invest $2.7 million and create 18 new jobs over the next 2 years if Beaufort County is selected for the project. The proposed county performance grant is up to approximately $11,000 and will be used to match a potential $60,000 1NC grant from the state of North Carolina. A performance grant requires the company to meet its capital investment and job creation goals in order to receive the proposed grant funding. Any comments?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into the public hearing on the budget.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a public hearing to receive comments from the public on the proposed fiscal year 1920 budget. North Carolina General Statute 159.12B requires that before adopting a budget ordinance, the board hold at least one public hearing for the public to be heard on that budget. As you'll recall, the board completed their budget workshops and revised the manager's recommended budget. You have attached on page 13 in your agenda book the changes that were made to the manager's recommended budget, and we'll go through those in just a second. The budget is balanced and prepared in accordance with the policies and procedures of the North Carolina Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, and is due to be adopted by July 1. If you'll look on page 13, the changes that were made to the manager's recommended budget by the board during the budget meetings, where there were some expansions. I'll go through that on the general fund side. On the general fund side, there was an expansion of 2% for a COLA for county employees. There was a 2% COLA for Beaufort Hyde Martin library staff. Those are both recurring numbers. There was a grant. There was an expansion in the amount of $10,000 for the drug recovery court. That is a recurring amount that would go over the 3 years of the grant. There was a recurring number of $14,251 for the NC East Alliance membership. You'll remember in that there was an opportunity to either be a member of the NC East Alliance or do it on a per project basis, kind of a pay-as-you-go, and the board chose to be a member of that. There was also recurring funding in the amount of $246,075 that was added to the capital improvements funding. There was already some existing funding in the budget for that, and the board essentially added that additional amount to bring it to the amount of 1 penny on the tax rate, which is $575,000. So you'll see up on the revenue side, that's where you see that increase, where it says increase tax rate by 1 cent and designate it for capital improvements. That's where you take the existing funds that were in the capital budget and add to it the $246,075, and that equals the $575. There was also a child welfare position added in DSS. That is a recurring position at $68,594. There is a revenue offset from the state of North Carolina for that. You'll see that in the revenue side. Just below the first one is $15,474. The state provides some funding for that on the offset. There was also a change in the school current expense funding, which is a recurring amount of $179,000. Essentially what the board did was they took $179,000 from the capital. As you recall, there are two line items that the board provides for the school system, either a current expense funding or a capital funding. So there are two numbers that go in there. Essentially what the board did was they took $179, took it out of capital, moved it up to current expense. And you'll see the offset in the bottom where it says reduce school capital funding. So essentially the school funding stayed the same as it was for last year overall. You just moved some money between the two line items. In some changes, although they're called expansions, they are decreases in services on this side. The board eliminated the funding for the lobbyist at the amount of $36,000, and they also eliminated doing video production outside and bringing that in-house. That's a recurring piece. That video will still occur. It's just going to be done by in-house staff instead of outside staff, and that's a $30,000 reduction. So that is on your general fund side. If you'll flick to page 14, in the water funds, you'll see where there was a a 2% COLA for water fund employees, and that's amount of $21,036. And that is offset on the revenue side by a reduction in the addition to fund balance of $21,036. The way the water fund is set up, there's a certain amount that's set in by the revenues that come in that go back into that fund. It's done on purpose that way because you have some debt services coming up later to help build some fund balance to pay that debt service. And then the solid waste fund is the same. $317 provides for the 2% COLA. There's a slight piece of personnel costs that are associated with the solid waste fund. So that 317 comes out of the reduction in contingency for the revenue side. Those are the changes that the board made to the budget that was presented, and it is now part of the process by which you receive public comment on that. After that, you have the ability to either adopt the budget or hold it until your next meeting. We have scheduled a special call meeting next week at the same time if the board chooses to do that. It just needs to be worked out and completed before July 1. Any questions you have?
Just point of clarification, on that drug court money for the Succoth Judicial District is $10,000 per Beaufort County.
Yes, sir.
That is pending if all other counties participate, is that correct?
No, sir, that's not the way we understood it. We've shown it in the budget as $10,000. We do know that Washington County is participating. We know that Martin County is participating. Martin County is participating. We have not heard from Hyde or Turrell yet. But it's my understanding that the counties are going to participate. But we did not make it contingent upon anything else. Our understanding was you wanted to do it.
I mean, well, where does the makeup money come from?
That would be up to the Second Judicial District to figure out where to get those funds. They wouldn't come back to you for funds.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson?
Within the budget, there's a proposed increase in solid waste fees of what?
$10.
$10 increase in solid waste fees.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're now open. You have anything else, Brian? Okay, it's now open to public. Mr. Cheeseman, your name's number one on the list. Welcome.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? All right, excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've asked Mr. Doan and Mr. Carwin to be next to me just to finalize any questions that you might have. But today I stand in front of you as a representative of Beaufort County Schools and the people who educate your children and our children. More specifically, I stand in front of you addressing a need that was a shortfall. And specifically, we're looking at a $2.009 million request, and I respectfully say that I can understand a $179,000 increase for local expenditures. But unfortunately, I cannot understand a decrease in capital expenditures when I provided you a $7 million need list of 14 buildings throughout our district, of which you asked me to prioritize. And in my world, when you rob Peter to pay Paul, if you're the third child, you've been left out. And I'm the third child in my family, and my parents gave me the opportunity to speak, and I thank you for allowing me the time to speak. We stand in a moment right now because of the aftermath of this type of ORED study that has created a panic across our district. Even more so, I spent the weekend down in Snowden in Aurora with about 50 people in church wondering specifically, would we close our school because they weren't sure if we would receive the funding. Even more so, Golden Leaf, Jason Rochelle reached out to me about an hour before this meeting started to actually red flag the Golden Leaf grant that they would like to give us because they were very concerned that your ORED study said that you would close North Side or South Side. So right now they're waiting to hear back whether you would write a letter of support on behalf of Beaufort County Schools in order to have that Golden Leaf grant that we need so much. And again, that study was really working with our business leaders and our school community in order to ensure that our students and children graduate with the skills necessary to fill the jobs here in Beaufort County and beyond our borders. So I'm hoping that you'll join me in signing off on a letter tomorrow giving the support. Now, the reason I'm actually here today is specifically to talk about the shortfall and what that means. And first and foremost, I want to thank you for the $15 million that you've given our district. And I don't want that to be lost on anyone in this room or this community. So I'm going to pause for a moment. It's not enough. And that's really what it is. That's really what it is. I'm not here to criticize you. I'm not here to scold you. I'm coming back to you saying it is not enough. And so with that, let me talk to you about why it's not enough. First and foremost, you want me to give these children the highest quality education. So considering, excuse me one second. If you do not increase our funding, I'm going to lay her off, or someone like her. That's real. There are 8 time-limited positions in this county that I'm immediately going to say goodbye to. And she and many other people in this district provide the high-quality education all the way down to our pre-K, all the way down to the young children of this community and other communities who bring their kids to Beaufort County. And one of those will be my own child. And so considering you're looking at teachers, and you've asked me how many teacher positions, let's talk about TAs. Look at the custodian over my right shoulder, left as you face me. Someone's going to get laid off. Straight up. And that should not happen in any regard. Thank you. So considering with that, I want you to know, 8 TA positions will close out. But Senate Bill 329 sits out there saying specifically, let's provide more funding for teacher assistants. But I cannot use Senate Bill 329 to replace what I don't have. It's supposed to be in addition to, and that's part of the issue. So when you talk to me specifically about where the money comes from, I've already told you specifically that I could save $980,000 by not replacing teacher vacancy jobs. Kids will lose. When we talk about wellness of our employees will lose. They will do twice as much work for covering someone else who used to be there, but because of your decision, will not be there. And even more so with that, when I talked about a partnership 3 weeks ago, 5 of you have sat either in my office or I've sat in yours. 1 of you have failed to meet with me at all since January, at my request. And the other person, I went all the way up the steps to your office. But 5 of you looked right at me and said, I'm pro-education. Well, that's like my mother looking at me saying, I love you all equally. I looked at my older brothers. I know it. She didn't love us all equally. I get it. I get it. But the key part of that is it's about behaviors. And this school system hired a superintendent that would die for its employees. So what I'm really asking you, and I said this to you individually, your decision in terms of funding of a public school system makes everyone behind me realize you're either a community of innovation or retirement. And I asked you 3 weeks ago, would you partner with me? Would you partner with me on a quarterly basis in a joint education steering committee? And I've never heard back. I've told you I would meet you anywhere, anytime, and I've not heard back. And that's the key part. So yes, thank you for $15 million. But when you give an increase of COLA that doesn't even match the state, and that's what our employees need, that's a punch in the face. It really is. And so I represent a board who doesn't want to close one single school. None of them. Listen to what that means. You start closing schools, people stop coming. I can tell you that. I've been in Chicago, I've been in Sacramento, I've been in Oakland. I'm originally from New Jersey, outside of Philadelphia. I know what it's like to be on the South Side. And right now, the South Side is scared of you. I'm serious. It's real. And so what I'm asking you to do is really think back through that funding mechanism, because you're at 23% fund balance, is what I've heard. I'm now below 8. That's scary. And by taking $179,000 out of my capital budget, if 2 chillers go down at Northside High School this year, I have $0 left. 0. But when you look at a community and you say, listen, we're going to hold the school system equal in funding, you've looked at the very custodians, the very maintenance people, the very school nutrition people, that without them we could not have school even before the teacher walks in. You've looked at them and said, I don't care about your facilities or working conditions. That's true. And so if you're asking me to hold 14 buildings together, or you don't care if I close one, that's very scary for children and their parents. Because some of our families, the safest place to be for their children is school. And that is real. And what amazes me is that some of you are so passionate about this Golden Leaf grant, the very grant that would teach our children the skill sets for the jobs that all of you are saying we need. You were willing to contribute more dollars. And then you took away $179,000 out of capital, shifted it over to local, so all you really did was rob Peter to pay Paul, and our kids are left out. And that's scary. And so, Commissioner Waters, when you look at me and you say, well, we have the highest per pupil allotment and spending in the region, these are our children. You would want to spend more on these kids. And the key part of that is you never asked me what textbooks cost this year. You've never asked me what lab materials will cost. You never asked me how much science teachers pay out of their own paycheck in the middle of Walmart to give a lab experience to children. You didn't ask me that. You just turned around and said, per pupil, we're the best. Good for you, because when I got the highest score in my family, Mom put it on the side of the refrigerator and then it was next. So if you're saying, here's our paper, we're the highest, tap it to a refrigerator, have at it. But at the same time, the children are going to lose. And if they lose, I lose high-quality teachers. And if you lose high-quality teachers, high-quality teacher assistants, bus drivers who are paid less than what they deserve, my goodness. If you lose your custodians, if you lose your school nutrition, what do you have? You have chaos. And that chaos started with an ORED study. And now you've asked for that study a year ago, and it came to fruition this spring. And Thomas Dudley and Matthew Palmer walked right in and said, hey, you should close these schools. And all they did, really, was count the total number of classrooms and the total number of children, and you paid almost $40,000 for that mathematics, and I would have done it for half. When you could have saved that money and gave it to us. You could have saved that money, gave it to my TAs, gave it to my custodians, give it to my nurses. Right? So what I'm saying really is this. Thank you for welcoming me to Beaufort County Schools. And you're in a hard position. But please remember what it was like in your high school years, because I do not have chalkboards. I've got technology that has to be repaired that's out of date 2 years later. I have people who have wellness issues that you can't imagine. I have people who get up every day, come to work, and then go to their other job. I need help. I need help. Now, the strange part about it is I'm looking at you, and I'm not begging for 2.009. I'm begging for clarity of thought. Think differently, please. I didn't ask you for $2 million today. I'm asking you to give us something that does not rob my savings account to pay my checking account. That's sleight of hand. That's terrible. And so really what I'm asking you to do is partner. Partner with me. I invited you to walk through the schools, and you didn't do it. Not as a group. I invited you to partner with me and be the best. I asked you to be the best in your position to specifically make us known locally, regionally, statewide, and nationally. I've asked us to do that together. And you asked me how long would it take, and I said 3 years. And the best way to bring people to your community is get yourself out of low performing. And I can do that. You have 3 schools in low performing. I can do that. And when I say I mean we. And the biggest part about that is your best action right now is to take a chance on me, is to take a chance on us. Because someone in this audience yesterday asked me, how many schools do we actually lose money to? The answer is 8. Charter, regional, wherever they go, it's 8. So essentially what you give me, I'm giving away to some degree. I need more. And so with that, I just want to say to you, if you give me nothing else, give us your time. Walk through our schools. Go read to our children. Go sit in the middle of a kindergarten class and wish you funded me more. I am serious, right? I'm serious. Where do you want to be as a county? Do you want to be retirement or do you want to be innovation? Because on Highway 17, you have areas that are already fully equipped, just waiting for industry, right? They won't come if they look at your public school funding and believe that you have not funded them appropriately. It's the truth, because I did not call Golden Leaf today. They called me. So I'm just asking you to rethink this. Rethink this. I am now down under $1 million in capital funding for 14 schools. 14. Just pause and think about that. 14 brick and mortar schools. You have 80 children at Ed Tech right now worried about what you're going to do. You have 15 or more employees worried about what you're going to do. You had employees from that school crying in my office the other day. And I had nothing for them. Some of those employees looked at me and said, "What happens if we don't get funding?" I said, "You're no longer part of Beaufort County Schools. If I have to shut Ed Tech down, you will have to go home or go somewhere." That is real. Back in February, when I first met you to do a presentation, I told you I would flip your funding aspects from a traditional ask of 2 to 3% to a zero-based budgeting. This gentleman to my left, Willie Mack, went through every single 19-digit budget line to see where we could save money. We have stripped it down as far as we can go. And I recognize as a county commission, it is not your job to decide on what schools should be closed. So then I would question why you had a NORAD study. But even more so, what I would say to you is, you want to live in Beaufort County and you want someone to wait on you. You want someone, when you go into the restaurant, to give you high quality service. And you all know that if you walk into a restaurant and it's bad food and it's good service, you'll give it a try a second time. But if you walk into the restaurant and it's bad service and it's good food, you'll go for takeout next time. And our community realizes that if you don't provide additional services to us, they're going to take out in another place. And that is real. That is real. And so with that, there's 5 words that typically come out of my mouth: influence, impact, legacy, relationships, and urgency. So I'm saying to you that your influence of this decision is going to impact us long through your legacy. And the relationships of the people behind us have hope for what you're deciding to do with your cash flow of this county. And at the end of the day, I'm asking you to be far more urgent about it, because school starts in 100 days. And so with that, I invite you to come to my office anytime. I want to thank you for a future partnership in advance. And again, just ask you to change your thinking in terms of what our funding mechanism looks like. Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to come up for public hearing?
Good afternoon, committee, Mr. Chair, commissioners. I like what the superintendent just brought up. My name is W.C. Boyd. I am the town commissioner in Aurora. There's been a lot of things kind of went by the wayside in Aurora. Grocery store several years ago. School system where we had different people wanting to move from the public schools, trying to get the charter schools started. after hearing some of the feedback, my decision was more to try to push for the public schools. The main reason was because most of the money did not stay where the child stayed. And that was the biggest reason that I was more for the public school, and also that we have a nice school in Aurora. Didn't know how the kids and stuff was going to start all over again and move in trailers or whatever. We'd start a charter school. But I'm here today because I'm just been hearing different things, and I'm glad I'd heard what the superintendent said a while ago. Where do we stand? I'm just here so that I can try to go back as people talk with me, that I'm educated enough to know how the county commissioner feel, and as far as what the superintendent of Beaufort County is trying to do and show why we need this money or whatever the case may be. So any information, and I don't think I'm the only one in this room here today, that some information came out over the weekend. It was discussion at churches, people asking questions. Right now, if you look at the people in Aurora, you got people, kids on the school bus at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting home 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. Again, here say that was a possibility they may had the south side would be let go, and north side, and they're going to put a school somewhere in Washington or on the other side of this bridge. I'm just a concerned person that any information that you can give us, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Product of SW Stoughton School.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, do I have to tell you who I am? First of all, these two gentlemen on the end, I appreciate your enthusiasm when the superintendent was up here, because you guys were very much into him. But as I said, I'm a product of SW Stoughton.
Could you give us your name and where you live, please?
I live in Aurora. My name is Eugene Fuller. I live in Aurora. The land that Snowden is built on was my family land many, many years ago. That town means a lot to me. I left that town in 1976. I returned to Aurora 2 years ago by choice. I love that town. I love that school system. I love the fact that we have a principal that's a product of that school system, you know? But I love the fact that we have to come together and fight for our school system. You got the largest tax base in the county, right there in Aurora. PCS, Texas Gulf, Neutron, or whatever the name may be. You get more taxes out of that employer than you get anywhere in this county. But we get less at SW Snowden. We get a lot less. I mean, I saw a school system that was probably 75 to 80% success rate in the 70s and 80s. Now, what is it? You know, and then you're talking about taking more from it. Yeah, it takes parental involvement as well as you guys, because you guys are decision makers. Without you, we can't do anything. We can sit up here and talk all day long, but we can't do nothing without your support. You know, the people of that community, I see a lot of them here, quite a few. And we all love that community. It's nothing there. We don't have a grocery store anymore. You know, we had 3 when I was a kid, had a movie theater. What do we have now? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But we do have the largest employer in the county. Now we got that. You know, but we have nothing else. We have nothing to show that the tax base for this county, a lot of it comes from right there, from Aurora. We don't have nothing to attract anyone there. You know, as a parent, my kids are all grown. Young adults living all over the country, you know? But we have produced from that little school system there in Aurora, we have produced CEOs, professional sports figures, you know, CFOs, doctors, lawyers, you know? Oh, yeah, Mike Paul. But I mean, we have had some great product to come out of that school system. But if we don't give back to that school system, we're not going to produce anything. You know, you can't get nothing. Oh, well, help me out, my sister. Help me out. But I mean, you can't just take and expect to receive anything. And right now, as a resident of Aurora, I feel like you've taken everything we have. The only thing that we have left in Aurora is S.W. Snowden. That's all we have left. You know, and the history behind that name, Mr. Snowden was a principal in Maryland, was recruited by some of the elders of that community, went to Maryland, promised to name the school after him if he moved here. That tells you how much it means to us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Travis Midget, and I'm from Aurora. And after meeting with the superintendent Saturday, and he went over the scores for S.W. Snowden, and the last 2 years he showed us where the school was improving. But he made a statement. He said it's not improving fast enough. And I told him at the end of the meeting, some things I agree with you on and some things I don't. These kids are not going to improve overnight. It takes work. And I goes to that school often because I was coaching the basketball team there. And I see teachers that's working very hard. I see a principal that's putting out very hard. Now, he made the statement that you guys haven't been to that school and looked around. But if you go to that school, you'll see a family environment there, and they are working very hard. Now, one thing I tell my church, the kids come first. If you neglect the kids, then you got a problem with me. Now, this is not a Democratic situation or a Republican situation. We see the stuff on TV. We're tired of the bickering. As a community, we're tired of the bickering. We're looking for you guys to work together. Amen. Stop the bickering. Stop acting like children. It's all about progression. And if you take away the schools, that's not progression. That's going the other direction. Our kids are our future. And this is something that we pull aside that you're a Republican. Pull aside that you're a Democrat. Pull aside that you are independent. Because these children don't have anything to do with politics. They do not know what you are. They might know who you are, but they don't know what you are. So let's think about these children. Let's give them what they need. We shouldn't lose Nair School in this county. We shouldn't lose Nair one. We should be looking to hire the best teachers, the best principals. It's time out for the backroom deals and all that kind of stuff. Let's throw that stuff to the side and let's start focusing on the kids.
Thank you. Is anyone else? Anyone else? Motion to close.
Whoa, wait.
Glenn?
Is there anybody who wants to talk about anything other than the schools? It's a budget hearing.
Good evening. I'm Vicki Hamill. I'm the principal at Beaufort County Ed Tech Center. I sent you all a letter today. It was all very emotionally written because my heart is with those kids. And we're going to graduate 45 this year. That would be dropouts. They're not easy to deal with. Some of them have been through horrible, traumatic situations. Some of them have been homeless. Some of them live in extreme poverty. Some of them are neglected and abused. It's a last chance academy in so many ways for those kids. And I know I'm emotional and that may not be professional, but it is with heart that I speak today for my kids, because all of us are employable adults. We have a high school diploma, we have associate's degrees, we have bachelor's degrees, we have master's degrees. And whether or not Beaufort County can continue to support us and employ us, we have a chance. But our children that come to Ed Tech will not do well in the regular setting. They've already proved that. They've proven that the regular setting is not the best fit for them. And yes, we have an expensive per pupil amount of money spent there. But I've personally made it my agenda to reduce the utilities there and have done so. I'll send you the expense report if you'd like to see it, but I've reduced the utility costs there this year. I've done everything I can to ensure that kids stay in school. I've worked with all these wonderful people to try to prevent the loss of those high school diplomas, because we see the long-term cost of losing education. I sent it to you in the email today. There's a chart that shows the cost of incarceration. Some of our kids without a high school diploma will not be gainfully employed, and they may turn to crime. I also sent you a video with a research-based study from CNBC about the long-term cost of high school dropouts. If you'll consider the long-term cost versus the short-term investment, I'm sure you'll see it's worth it to give us the funds that we need to give a quality education to every kid, even the one that's dropped out and been called back. I spent last summer calling students that had dropped out and asking them to come back to school. And this June 15th, we will graduate 45 students. We have a new K-5 program that deals with the mental health issues and the behaviors at a younger age, so we can prevent the dropout altogether as quickly as possible. We added a middle school teacher this year to take the load off of one teacher from teaching all the subjects and just having two. Our high school only has one English, one social studies, one science, one math, and one history teacher. We run on a skeleton crew, and sometimes our class sizes are 23 to 25 when they should be 10 to 15. But we're doing everything we can to help these students be successful, employable, and successful. That's what we want. So we don't come to you today, demanding money. We come to you asking for a chance. I appreciate your consideration, and thank you for having us all here today. I know we've taken a lot of your time, but our children are important. Thank you.
Good evening to our county commission, to everyone that has assembled here. Our children is my name is Florence Lodge, and I'm sure you all know. I'm out here gonna. My name is Florence Lodge, and I'm concerned about our school situation. Our children is our future.
That's right.
Would you be sitting there today if somebody hadn't been concerned about you? We need to come together, as the man said, the young man. You don't worry about a Democrat. You don't worry about a Republican, Independent. These are your children. We need to work with these children. And if you don't work and let them get, I don't think it's right for teachers to take money out of their pocket and buy for their children when we are paying tax out there to help our children. I don't think it's right. And another thing about it, too, we got to learn that it's not all about us. We got to look because of Aurora School, Snowden School. We got to be concerned about every school that we have. Are we concerned? Or are we putting them down? We need to look up and keep our children in school. I have talked to I go to different meetings, and I have talked to black children and white children. Why are you leaving Washington and going off to another school or leaving Beaufort out here going to Greenville? You know what their reply was? We cannot get a decent job.
Amen.
And if you can't get a decent job, you're going to put them out here, they're going to be stealing and doing everything. So we need to work on that. We need to come together. I don't care what color you are. You need to come together, put it on the table, and talk about it. Because we are not addressing with our children. We are making the law enforcement, making them make more money, because our children is so bad. Oh, this thing. I have talked to law enforcement about our children, and I know a lot of it is our parents. You got everything sealed up. If they do something bad, we can't go out there and get them. We can't beat them. Because you're saying you have the law knocking at your door. But now what we can do is use some common sense. Amen. And come together. I know every one of you. I know where you come from. So let's come together and work with our children. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to talk about the budget in any other area?
What you're asking is there anyone that wants to talk about anything other than the school situation? No. Okay. Then I'll do my thing. I can sit right here and do it. I'm going to go down there and do it. It is no secret that I have a problem with the budget process. And to see people come in from the school system asking for more money, and commissioners have not appropriated that money and may not appropriate that money, there's plenty of waste in this budget that these commissioners can go through to find some money for the schools if they want to. And I'm going to give you some examples of some of this. So don't criticize me for being so harsh. Criticize me if you want to for being truthful. That's not going to go anywhere. I'll give you one example. There's about $70,000 in here. The sheriff did a very poor job on a contract that he had. It was costing the contractor $300 and something to do what he could go over to the sheriff's office and pay $30 to get the service made. So what did the contractor do? He canceled the contract. Well, what did the commissioners do? They're keeping that employee in the sheriff's department. This is bad business, folks. Right there, $70,000 for the school. you've got some other problems that can be fixed in this budget ordinance, if you're willing to, that have come up before. The personal use. It sounds like I'm harping on the sheriff's office. So I'm just starting off on that. We have a situation where employees use vehicles for personal purposes. The commissioners, all you have to do is say in the budget ordinance, there's no appropriation in this ordinance for the personal use of any county property. You've made some money there. The average mileage on the sheriff's cars, on patrol cars, using their information is less than 50,000 miles per car. And when you look at the rest of what's going on in the sheriff's department, you have to work to get over 100,000 miles per car. Now, people can tell me whatever they want to, but these cars are made. If you can't get 200,000 miles on a car today, there's something wrong with you. You're not taking care of it. But there's $400,000 in the sheriff's budget to buy new cars. What is he going to do with them when he gets them? This is one of the sins of these so-called continuation budgets, where we just stick the same number in this year that we had last year. This board has not been willing to address overstaffing. They keep telling me, well, tell us where to cut. I'm not going out and pinpoint people I know that are surplus in county government, and I know where some are, because this board is not willing to vote to adjust payroll and staff to what it should be. You continued the budget, and you let that person you didn't need, several of them, stay where they were, and they're still working. That's $50,000 or $60,000 a year. So there's money here. The budget was increased for, another example was the sheriff bought new guns for all of his people last year. $50,000. Guess what? That $50,000 is in the budget again this year. It was never taken out. We've got these kinds of issues that this board has refused to film these budget meetings so the public can see what's really going on, and they don't know these things. And that's why I'm up here talking about it today, because these are sore points. There's plenty of things that can be cut from this budget. One of the things that's being talked about is a capital fund for the jail. Sounds to me like that's going to be in addition to the budget. And if it is, that's another $1.5 million that these people want. Why? Because of mismanagement in the jail. You can talk it all you want to, but I went down and saw myself today. This stuff can be repaired. We'll probably put modern stuff in just to get the thing shut down, the controversy shut down. But that's mismanagement. Any way that you want to look at it, it's mismanagement. There's been no look or removal of things that we bought last year that can be used for more than 1 year. Commissioners didn't even look at it, and you've passed a budget that you intend to raise 1 cent to raise another $575,000 this year. Solid waste fees have gone up $10 within this budget in a separate fund. So I'm back where I was before. The sinful thing that this county does on budgeting is continuation budgets. You, commissioners, have not done your job. There's at least a couple of $1 million that can be cut out of this budget.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Come on, Doc.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I've heard about all I can stand. I am supporting the school district. I agree that you need to make some changes, and I feel in my heart that you will go back and look at it again. Mr. Richardson was way out of place. He is 9 times out of 10 out of line as a commissioner elected by this community. He needs to sit behind the podium or whatever you call where he's sitting and do his job and not stand up here and preach to you, because he's been through all of these hearings. He has voiced his opinion on what to do and what not to do. Everybody's discussed the items. I watched you. I've noticed you a lot. You don't just willy-nilly make a decision about an issue when it comes to your community. I know we can't please everybody. I know we're all short on money. But who'd you just got to straighten up and do it correct? I'm very sorry. As a citizen of this community and a taxpayer, I have a right to stand up here and tell you how ridiculous you are sometimes. Just do your job. Excuse me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone? The budget? Don't close? I need a motion. Motion to close?
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, raise your right hand, please. 6-0. Okay, it's public comments. Tim Mordecai. Is Tim here? He's outside. W.C. Boyd, is he here? He's on the phone.
He's already spoken.
Oh, okay. Miss Mish?
Good evening, Chairman Evans, Commissioners. I'm going to stick with my quiet public comments because you don't want to hear my anger from the last year. You don't want me to unleash it because we've got more to talk about than community and partnership. We have a lot to talk about. It's been some 20 years of on and off discussion about our need for a new jail. We are all responsible for not understanding and accepting how to avoid the potential financial disaster looming out there at us, precipitated by the federal civil lawsuit against us. Yes, we are very fortunate there is one company out there willing to repair the broken doors of the jail. Yes, buying time while we decide on the necessity to build a new public safety facility before we face receivership, before the federal government steps in to spend exorbitantly building one for us and handing us the bill. It is time we move the discussion forward on planning for a new facility and work on our accountability for what happens now. Engage our fellow citizens about the comparative gains to losses based on our voting on the jail bond referendum. It's time to work on the obvious and address our one reasonable option. It shouldn't be difficult to explain. To vote yes on a new public safety facility we build ourselves will save us from what we would all dread most, one built anyway, based on the casualty of our long-term resistance, one built at far greater cost. Commissioners, please get behind what is best for this community and begin community engagement about the jail bond referendum. Tonight, I begin by asking Chief Deputy Rhodes to have an open house. Invite everyone who wants to learn about the jail issue to come and ask questions. Ask questions for the sake of learning where we are headed and the true cost of doing nothing. Thank you for your time.
I recommend we approve the items for consent with the additional one that was added as it relates to the jury commission reappointment.
Second.
Want to do it again?
We can do it again.
All right. All those for it? That's for it. All those opposed? Passes 4-2.
Just as a recap, this item is to decide a road name petition for an existing recorded easement of approximately 700 feet in length. It's located about 550 feet from the intersection of U.S. Highway 17 South and Frederick Road, and is south of Chalkwanity's jurisdiction. The road name petition was triggered by an address request for a third structure along the easement. The road being considered consists of a private 60-foot wide right-of-way within which there's a 10-foot wide travel width. The petition was completed by both of the landowners along the easement who are in agreement with the road names. Again, in order of preference, they are Yonder Lane, Honeybee Lane, and Harvest Lane. The first choice, Yonder Lane, presented a sound-alike with Yonkers Lane within the county. Staff is recommending that Honeybee Lane be chosen. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second the motion.
This is the same speech I've been given on all of these. Is what we've got is a 10-foot road, and it's probably not improved for the sheriff to go down and emergency services to go down. We do not need to be naming roads that emergency vehicles and the sheriff cannot get down. These people need to have mailboxes at the road with a road number out at the road. And I'm hoping when we rework our ordinance that we're going to fix this, because this is totally wrong and it can cause a lot of trouble and it can cause people to die too. So I'm voting against it on that principle, but.
Mr. Waters?
All right, question. Do you know what the width of this road is?
It's a gravel drive that's about 10 feet in width. And just to kind of touch on the concerns, the E911 address ordinance does not require that the road be brought up to standard in order to name a road. In this case, it's a grandfathered road. An existing non-conforming road is only required to be brought up to standards when there's a subdivision existing along the road. At this point, there's no subdivision happening, and the ordinance that pertains to is the subdivision, the Beaufort County subdivision ordinance, section 404.2, addressing easements. If you like, I could read that.
I'm more interested in the width of the road.
Okay, I was kind of addressing both of the concerns there. It is 10 feet wide for the gravel road within the 60-foot right-of-way.
Is it like a logging path with trees on both sides?
No, it's clear within the right-of-way.
Okay, it's clear on both sides.
That's
So
correct.
there wouldn't be any branches touching the EMS truck?
No,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. You've answered my question.
Okay.
Any more questions? You ready to vote? All in favor, raise your right hand. Yeah, whoa, yeah. All opposed? Raise your hands down. 4-2, motion passed. Okay.
All right, for this
Ms.
next
Roberts,
item. Okay.
Go ahead.
For this next item, staff is asking the board to clarify road name decision made in 1999. This decision affected State Route 1424, which begins at Market Street Extension and traverses north-northwest, ending short of the Martin County border. Through the 1999 resolution, State Route 1424 from Market Street to the intersection of Gallberry Road, and you have maps in your packets if you want to follow along, This portion was named Avenue Road. From Gallberry Road to the Highway 171 intersection was named St. John's Church Road. This decision has left unclear what the portion of road from Highway 171 to the northwest should be named. This has led to road name inconsistencies, which have occurred both through PASE 911 centerline file administration and at the individual addressing level. The road name transition from Avenue Road to St. John's Road, St. John Church Road, has shifted northeast of the Gallberry Road intersection up to the Corey Road intersection, leaving 3 structures addressed Avenue Road and none addressed as St. John's Church Road. Also, there are a mixture of addressed properties north of Highway 171 being addressed as either Avenue Road or St. John's Church Road, 5 of which are addressed as Avenue Road, and 6 of which are being addressed as St. John Church Road. All of these structures are residential, with the exception of one, which is a farm building. Of concern is that by having Avenue Road on 2 separate portions of the road could lead to confusion during emergency response situations. And this is also inconsistent with the Beaufort County addressing ordinance, which calls for a uniform system of road addresses. And last, the resolution incorrectly identified the State Route 1424 as State Route 1422, which is actually Market Street Extension. Staff is recommending that the board clarify that the 1999 resolution to recognize State Route 1424 from Market Street Extension northeast to Corey Road as Avenue Road, which is approximately 3,500 feet further northeast of the original Gallberry Road intersection. Also, staff recommends that the board adopt St. John Church Road beginning north of Corey, continuing past Highway 171 up to the northern terminus. And this decision will also make clear that the route in question is 1424. After clarification, staff will issue address corrections to all those involved with the decision. Are there any questions on this item?
Discussion?
Just for the records, all parties involved are okay with this change.
I understand we had a staff member that went out and spoke to the property owners. I'm not
The property
sure.
owners, do anyone know that the property owners involved are okay with this change? Yes or no?
I can't say 100%. I don't know that that's true.
Okay.
Do one thing. Let me say this. Can you say, insofar as you know, all property owners are in agreement with it? You don't know of any that are in disagreement with it. Can you say that?
I would prefer not to say.
Mr. Chairman. I did have a conversation with Brian Buck, and it was my understanding from him that he had had discussions with folks along the route.
I just wanted to understand.
Did you?
Jerry, you remember years ago when we had a meeting on this very issue? That's out in your neck of the woods. And you seconded the motion. Is it okay to your knowledge?
Nobody has said anything to me. I live on Avenue Road.
Yes, I thought you did.
That's not changing. That's not changing.
But that's still pretty close.
Will you second if he withdraws second?
Doing well right now.
All right, well, move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
We're ready to vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Pass.
Thank you.
Melody, please join us.
Good evening. In your packet, you have the Memorandum of Understanding between the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services and Beaufort County that's required out of House Bill 630 and Session Law 2017-41. The law requires each county to enter into an annual written agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services for all social services programs except Medicaid. If you recall, last year was the first year we had one, and they did do an amendment to the one last year. And going into 1920, this one will be very similar. There will be 13 static measures and 13 growth measures. The static measures we will be monitored on for performance, and if we don't meet certain criteria, we could be in a corrective action. It was presented to the DSS board at their meeting on May 20th, and the board voted to send the Memorandum of Understanding to the Board of Commissioners with a recommendation that it be approved.
Motion to approve.
Second the motion.
Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Those opposed? 4-2. Motion passes. Thank you. Christina?
Good evening, Commissioners. I bring before you this evening an update on the locking system upgrade for the Beaufort County Detention Center. I believe the last time we spoke was during the budget workshop when I gave an update. Since that time, technicians for Montgomery Technology Systems, a technician was able to visit the site. He came in this morning, and we went through looking at the sliders. If you recall, that is the one item that MTS did not have a complete scope of work for. So the technician came in today, and we actually took the covers off of the housings of 3 of the sliders to get a representative sample. 2 of the sliders were from the original 1969 construction, and 1 of the sliders was from the 1987 renovation of the facility. So looking at that, we believe that, hoping that that would give us a representative sample of the sliders. What the technician uncovered when he did that is that the existing slider devices were manufactured by a company, Roanoke Iron, which is no longer in business. He says that getting replacement parts for those type of devices, they are not readily available. So looking in conjunction with that, and then also looking at the actual construction of the sliders and how the locking mechanisms work, there is a lot of opportunity for inmates to alter or to tamper with the system. The system is not a sealed system, so there are spaces and gaps that are open that inmates in the past have been able to go in and to make it so that the doors do not function as they are supposed to function. Actually, one of the housings that we uncovered today was very evident of that. There was quite a bit of trash that was in that. So the technician looked at those sliders. He also took measurements of all of the sliders in the facility. He then contacted his superiors back with MTS because, again, what the goal of the technician coming on site was for him to actually look at our existing facility and to make sure that that all of the cost associated with making that a functioning and locking system would be, hopefully we would know about it now and not know about it later. I was hoping to have a renewed price today, but there were some additional issues that the technician saw that they did not have pricing readily available, so I do not have that available for you tonight. They are working on that, and in the next week we'll go together and go over each of those 97 openings to come up with a defined scope of work. Any questions about that so far?
Need a motion? Either. Do we?
Okay. So they are still working, right, they're still working to give a total cost. They've given me an estimate, but again, that's not a final number. I'm hoping to have that within the next week. what my recommendation at this time, Brian, would be that we would take an additional week and then discuss this at the special called meeting. I'm hoping at that point to have a defined scope of work for the for each of all of the 97 openings. Oh, I said isn't there one previously scheduled?
Thank you. Martin Johnson.
Request a performance grant to match a North Carolina Department of Commerce $60,000 grant for Project Mojo. Project Mojo, the company, has been in business for over 14 years, building motor yachts between 30 and 50 feet long. And their current out-of-state facility has been at capacity for 3 years with no room to expand. So they're looking to expand that facility by finding another facility. They intend to increase capacity and achieve lower cost of manufacturing with this new facility in Southeast U.S. and better serve their growing Southeast markets. The new facility must be cost competitive in terms of labor, overhead, utilities, and supply chain. And they are evaluating locations in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, and Mexico. They are assessing to find educated and skilled labor force. They want proximity to an airport of about 40 minutes, access to the coast, proximity to an urban population for labor and spousal job opportunities, and local and state government support and incentives. The facility, they're interested, Project Mojo in Beaufort County, and the company anticipates occupying in Beaufort County, is the Committee of 100 Industry Ready building. Project Mojo plans to create at their new facility 18 new jobs, an average wage of $43,667. Just to note, the county average wage is $37,611, so about $6,000 more than the county average. They also plan to invest $2 million in the facility and equipment, which will raise an estimated county property tax of $11,531. The county match for the 1NC grant, along with the city, would be $10,742. Thus, the payback would only be 1 year. So I come before you tonight to request the County Board of Commissioners vote that the county manager and the county attorney work with Project Mojo to provide an estimated $10,742 performance grant to make up, along with an estimated $9,258 from the City of Washington, the 30% match needed for the state of North Carolina $60,000 1NC grant. Got any questions?
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Do you? Well, yeah. Let me ask a couple of
Okay.
questions. How long will this grant go on? How many years?
It's anticipated that we should be able to close it out in 1 year. They want to move very quickly. The 1NC is a 3-year grant, so it could stay open as long as 3 years, but they want to take the building, move in. In fact, they're looking at...
Excuse me, I thought it was on.
They're looking at expanding relatively quickly if it's successful.
We're going to collect that much in taxes.
Yes.
And it only for 1 year.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Now, we're not going to expend this money unless they're definitely coming.
Right, yes. That they make the investment they say they're going to make and create the jobs they're going to make.
They're going to present
And that's
a
how
letter.
the one North Carolina fund, that's how it works. The money, once they create jobs and they make expenditure, then they receive the money. And that's the same way we do with the county money. So we're basically matching the 1NC grant.
Is this by agreement or by letter?
This would be under the 1NC program, be by agreement, yeah.
Okay.
Time to vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is the tax collector appointment item in your agenda, page 101. As you'll recall, in June of 17, the Board of Commissioners appointed Mr. Wynn Kenyon to a 2-year term as a tax collector. That term expires June 30th of this year. Per General Statute 105-349, the board shall appoint a tax collector to serve as a term determined by the appointing body. You have that statute on page 102, so it is the board's pleasure at this time.
So move to appoint Mr. Kenyon.
Second that motion.
For how long a term?
2 years.
2 years? 2
Yeah.
years.
Turn your mic on. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Motion passed.
Similarly, on page 103, you have the recommendation or the item on the tax assessor's appointment. In June of 17, the commissioners appointed Mr. Bobby Parker to a 2-year term as a tax assessor, which expires on June 30th. Also attached is the General Statute 105-294, which gives the Board of Commissioners the appointment power to appoint the tax collector for either a 2 or a 4-year term. So it is at the pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Statute allows a 2 or a 4-year term.
2.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? Discussion? Time to vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 5-1. One opposed. Passes. Motion passed. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 106, you have a local request match from the Mideast Commission on an EDA Hurricane Florence Recovery Grant. You'll see attached to the description of the grant, there was a $200,000 grant that the Mideast acquired through EDA, and it's specifically for Hurricane Florence Recovery Grant. It is to be used for recovery efforts and technical assistance in Beaufort, Bertie, and Pitt counties over the next 2 years, and Mideast is seeking support from those counties and local cooperative electrical cooperatives for the required $50,000 match. So the recommendation there is to approve $10,000 in this current year's contingency funding to fund Beaufort County's share of that EDA grant. There won't be any additional funding next year. This would cover it for this year, so you'd get a 2-year grant person working on recovery efforts for essentially $5,000 a year.
Motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
As I always ask when we have these multiple county grants, is all other counties involved, participated, to your knowing, Mr. Manager?
I do not know the answer. My assumption would be that they would, otherwise they will not receive the services.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson?
My question is this going to lighten the load on our staff?
It will to some extent. It will help. It'll also allow them to go after additional things in those counties relating to other grant opportunities that the COG would be the lead on. It would help us in our work as well.
Is it something that they pursue, or do we have to ask them to look for these grants?
New grants? I think they will do that as part of this project. They'll be looking for other opportunities and being able to find other things that might be a part of that, plus any additional work that's going on.
Time to vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0. Motion passes. Brian?
Page 108 is the Mideast planning contract for fiscal year 1920. Attached is the planning contract. This is the same contract we have with it's a professional services contract we have with the COG this fiscal year to provide for planning services. It is the same amount. The contract does have a 45-day termination clause for any reason, so the county could step out of it if they want to on 45 days' notice, as well as the COG could step out of it. Services are provided on an hourly basis with a not-to-exceed amount of $60,000. You have the contract attached, and there is funding appropriated in the proposed budget to fund this.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend or make the motion to approve the Mideast Planning Contract for fiscal year 1920.
Second.
Discussion. Time to vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0, motion passes.
This is on page 113. This is the sale of right-of-way at the Beaufort County Community College. As you recall from, it's been a while ago, the DOT came and did a presentation to the board about a safety project they were proposing in front of the community college. It is essentially creating a super street design in that area where you have turnarounds. You have to keep you from crossing too much traffic. So they are now in the process of acquiring rights of way for that. There is a section through one of the bulb outs, the turnaround areas, that encroaches on property that is under a lien by the USDA Rural Development that the board is engaged with on the health sciences building. So we had to go to USDA to ask them to release that piece of land. There is a permanent easement, and then there is a temporary construction easement. So you have the paperwork involved that has a release from the USDA to say, yes, you can essentially sell that property to NCDOT for right-of-way. That total amount is $5,300. You see how it's broken down, and then we are required to take that $5,300 and give it to USDA to go against the lien that they have on the property. So you still have a loan on that from them. So we would recommend your approval and answer any questions you might have.
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion.
One comment. The amount that we're actually selling is $4,600, which is 1/1500ths of an acre. If you convert that, Bobby Parker, that brings the value to $30,263 an acre. So that's probably one of the best deals that we've seen, or that I've seen in 4 years. So.
Time to vote. Please raise your, all those in favor, raise your right hand. 6-0, motion pass. Anita?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As part of the recommended budget for next year, we suggested that we should change the county payroll frequency and go from a semi-monthly payroll to a biweekly payroll. And the reason we recommended that is because we wanted to correct a few things that are going on right now. The first thing is, under the current system, we're actually paying employees prospectively. It can be from anywhere from 3 to 5 days, depending on if there's a holiday in there. And then also currently we have different departments that are on different pay cycles. And so part of moving to a biweekly payroll would also put all employees on the same pay cycle. You all seem to be very receptive to the idea. I believe it was in your first budget workshop that you voted to support that and allow us to move forward with that. When looking with that, at that implementation, it became pretty apparent to us that instead of doing a fiscal year implementation, a July 1 through June 30th implementation, it would be much more beneficial to do a calendar year implementation. So we would begin in January 2020, and there's several benefits to doing that, and they're all listed on page 123. I'm happy to go through those. But what we're looking for tonight is your support and allowing us to move forward with the change, but do it in January 2020. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the implementation of the biweekly payroll as of January 2020.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. After at our budget workshop, it sounds very, very good what Anita has proposed. But after hearing our employees talk about this thing. And I voted to do it at our budget workshop on the straw vote, but I cannot support it this time. And the reason I've tried to find out why. And it was because we have had some employees to get, they couldn't recoup the salary after they left. And I looked back and done some research, and it's our policy, and I'm standing to be corrected if I'm wrong, that no employee leave us and get their last check without an exit interview. That was our policy. And after even digging deeper and deeper, after taking employees' longevity, and now we're going to do this, I'm going to stand and vote against this time. I'm going to withdraw my vote. Thank you.
More discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. 5-1. I'm sorry, go ahead and vote. Motion passed. Sorry. Keep reminding me. 5-1. Motion passed. Mr. Francisco.
Commissioners, you may recall the last meeting, voted to offer this property in Highland Drive, which for a minimum bid, offered bid at a minimum of $35,000. This we opened last week.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the bid.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0 passed. Now we're talking. Katie.
Gentlemen, a voting delegate and an alternate are needed for the 2019 annual NACO conference being held in Clark County. Same one that you do every year. You will be voting on legislative and association policy for the coming year.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that you, as chairman, be our voting delegate and that our vice chairman be our alternate.
Second.
Discussion. On the vote, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0, motion passed. Commissioner Richardson.
I'll try to make this thing go as fast as possible. Brenda Hamilton was killed and mauled by an animal in the winter of this year. A lot of constituents in the county that I'm getting calls from, people that I'm talking to, and petitions have been circulated, so I understand. Tim Mordecai is not here, I don't believe. If he is, please speak up. He was to be here. There's a lot of questions. The public has questions about this as to how this happened. DNA results are conclusively and inconclusive both. And it looks like a canine did this, but nobody can seem to find a canine. What I would like to do to begin to put this to rest and to ease the minds of the public who are concerned about this, and there are a lot of people who are concerned about it, is the DNA work was done by Western Carolina University. There's nothing wrong with the work they do, but I would like for the county to engage the services of a DNA consultant to go over the work that was done and to make a recommendation as to whether additional work needs to be done. I have read the reports. I sent a lot of stuff for laboratory work, not anything for DNA work, but when you start seeing things in there like we didn't have all of the panels that we need to come to a complete decision, then I'm thinking that we need to get an expert to take a look at this and give us some advice as to how to proceed. There are some companies that do this that are very good at it. LabCorp is an international company. That's one of the names that I would mention, but I don't care who we get as long as we get someone who is thoroughly competent in reading the DNA reports and looking at them and making a recommendation as to how to go forward with this. And that's a motion.
Is there a second? Mr. Chairman, I'd be willing to second that as long as the evidence is passed through proper chain of command through the Sheriff's Department.
Not all the evidence passed through the Sheriff's Department. Samples were not split, as is customary on some of this stuff. It wound up with Wildlife took the samples, I guess with the permission of the Sheriff's Department, and sent them off for work. And because of all of these inconsistencies, again, I think that's why we need a consultant. Whether it went through the Sheriff's Department or not, it is the integrity of the sample that counts, regardless of whether it went through the Sheriff's Department or not.
Brian?
Mr. Chairman, just for some background for the board, and this was at the request of the chairman, we've reached out, or I've reached out to Miss Maureen Hickman, who is the scientist at Western Carolina University, to ask her if she may be willing to come and speak to the board. And she sent me back an email today that said she was amenable to doing that. She just had to run it through their legal staff to make sure they were okay with it. I've also got a commitment from Mr. Pete Benjamin, who is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Resources Supervisor for this area, who is committed to come in July to speak to the board as well. I am waiting on confirmation from Mr. Christopher Kent, who is with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, to see if his supervisor will come. Our hope, our request that came from the chairman was to ask if we could get these three folks or all of them together to come and make a presentation to the board so you could ask questions of them about the process, about everything, and then maybe based on that, then you can move forward if you're not comfortable with that, if you'd like to do some additional. But if you want us to continue down this path, I think we have a very good chance of getting all three of those individuals, along with maybe one of the investigators from the sheriff's office, to answer questions to help some of those things.
Well, I don't have a problem with doing what the manager's suggestion, but what this comes down to at the end of the day is only one of those people is a DNA expert. The Red Wolf is out there. There are certain wildlife agencies that have turf to cover. There's things that could not necessarily be done correctly. The only person that I'm willing to listen to and put any confidence in is a DNA expert who can go over the samples, the sample procedures, and the actual DNA work itself and give us his opinion. Other than that, you're just shooting in the dark. A wildlife officer is in no way qualified to come and tell us anything. They've already told us everything they know, and so are some of these other people. I don't mind if Ms. Hickman comes, but what I'm pushing for is the hiring of a legitimate, qualified DNA expert so that he can tell us, if you try to go forward, you're going nowhere, in my opinion, or here are flaws in this. As I say, I submit a lot of samples to laboratories, and laboratory procedures can be something to deal with. You have to know what the result of that actually means when you get the results and the kind of analysis that's done. And the only person that can address this is a DNA expert, and we need a third-party opinion because right now this is all going in one direction, that dogs did it, but we can't find the dogs. So if this can go in another direction, we need to know, and that's where I am with it.
Mr.
Commissioner Booth.
Mr. Richardson, at what cost? I don't mind what you want to do, but I think we need to go through the proper channels. As you just stood there and told us that we don't do our work, and you here talking about we signing a black check for somebody to come do some DNA. I don't mind that, but I would love to see a cap on the cost to do that, if it's all right.
Well, using some information that I obtained a couple of years ago when we were talking about the district attorney and about using private DNA in murder cases in order to make them go forward because the state was so slow at it, I would think $2,500 or $3,000 would be plenty of money to appropriate for an expert to do this work.
Waters?
Based on the discussion, I'll remove my second. One of the comments I would say is I looked at the DNA, and I'm not smart enough to understand the numbers on there, but I did read the narrative that was there. The biggest problem we have with the DNA is there's not a panel for the cross between the red wolf and the coyote. I mean, there's no reason to send it to another lab until we take and get DNA from one of these hybrids, Hood, so we can at least, they had the information on the red wolf, supposedly, on the DNA, but we don't have it on the hybrid.
Well, this is why I advocate for an expert, because I'm not an expert in DNA at all, and I don't think any of us are. We need an expert to give us the answers to this. Everybody has a dog in the fight. Every analyst that does, the pun, right, Martin? Everybody has something to defend in this particular fight. You won't go to anybody that does analytical work, and they'll tell you their analytical work is very good and it's excellent and all this sort of thing. But until you get an expert to start going through it to see what it really means procedural-wise, and the panel that Frankie mentioned, yes, Commissioner Waters mentioned, yes, I agree and I understand, but not everybody, there may be people who do have panels of mixtures. And this is what the expert will be able to help us with and give us answers to, so that we can proceed with easing the mind of the public in what really caused this.
Commissioner Waters?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask our manager to send a follow-up email to U.S. Fish and Wildlife. What I would like to know is the location of the nearest red wolf the morning of the attack, and also the location of that red wolf within the next 21 days. There is a rumor out there that a red wolf was removed from the area. Here again, I repeat, that's a rumor. But I did call U.S. Fish and Wildlife and ask them where the nearest red wolf was to my property, and they told me within 2 miles, and that it was a female that had been there for 3 years. So I would ask that we try to find out where the red wolf was that morning, and then where the red wolf was at for the next 21 days. If I shoot a red wolf on my property, and I load that up in my pickup truck, and I take it to Bellhaven and put it in, or Beach Ridge Road, and I put it in the dumpster, our solid waste site, within 24 hours, there'll probably be 2 black Tahoes there, and they'll open up a laptop, and they'll show me exactly where the red wolf was killed and where I took it. So the technology is there, and we've not been provided with the location of that red wolf. So U.S. Fish and Wildlife needs to come forward and provide that information to this county.
The question. Commissioner Waters, is every red wolf that is out there, is it have a monitor on it so that Fish and Wildlife knows where it is?
Every red wolf has a tracking collar. Coyotes do not have them, and the hybrid does not have them. But I've been told that every red wolf, if it's technically a red wolf, and it's got 90% DNA or whatever that index is, they have a tracking collar.
Well, we're getting into the discussion now of why we need a DNA expert, because I don't believe every red wolf is tracked by the Forest Service. If every red wolf is tracked by the Forest Service, then that is really scary. How many of you have implants in your ears that they're tracking? Come on. The things are born in the wild. Somebody has to go capture them and do all this. Every one of them is not tracked. And there are various mixtures out there that are not tracked too. The only way you're going to solve this is not with Fish and Wildlife coming in telling you red wolves don't kill people, and the DNA expert that did the work telling you how great she is and what she did. The only way you're going to resolve this is a third-party, independent, unbiased consultant who can tell us the direction that we need to go in. And that's what we need to do with this. And my motion is still out there. I would like for somebody to replace Commissioner Waters second, please.
You know you got it.
Any more discussion? Time to vote. Oh, huh? He second. Didn't you second it? Yeah.
One more stab at this. Hood, I don't mind voting for what you're asking for, but I also would love for us to go through the channels to make sure. The manager have already invited these folks. We might not hear what we want to hear, but let's follow the proper channels. And then, and if that's the case, I will second your motion anytime. But right now, I want to hear more about it. And I agree with you. Now, I don't think every red wolf out there is tagged either, because you got male and female, and when you turn them loose, nobody gonna run and catch them when they have puppies or whatever they call them. But I do wish you would just go through these channels for July, and if you're not satisfied in July when these people leave, we put this motion right back on the floor, and I promise you I'll vote for it.
Well, my response to that is I'm not going to be satisfied with it. I can tell you that now. Well, and the reason is wildlife people are not DNA experts. They can't tell us anything they haven't already told us. And the second reason is if this lady shows up and says, gee, I did some bad analysis, y'all really need to get somebody else to do it. I mean, I would think that a great black hole would open up in the middle of this room and she would go into it. I already know the answers you're going to get. We need to proceed with getting the experts that we need to get this thing over with and to ease the minds of the public. And I don't mind you invite them. I don't mind them coming here. But I already know the song and dance you're going to get, and I think most people do too. So my motion is still out there. I hope you'll approve it, because that's what the public's looking for, a final resolution of this particular situation. And the only way that it can ever be done is with a third-party DNA expert.
Time to vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed?
Yeah, me.
And if you bring this item back up in July after we hear these people, as I promise you, I will vote for it. But I would rather work through the channels to see what we have.
Mr. Booth, I don't know how you can make a promise like that, because you would be telling me in July that they swayed your thinking and you've changed your mind. So that's just not the way the world works.
Well, Mr. Richardson, I'm not going to get in a word matching contest with you. But I told you today, if I wanted to stop you from doing it, I'd have put the motion on the floor that we don't come back up in 6 months. But I didn't do that, because I told you after we hear the people that we have invited here that I would vote for it, and I will promise you I will vote for it if it's nobody but you and I. But we always got Stan.
Mr. Richardson, we're down to item 15. Election Commission. Yeah.
Yeah, the election. Excuse me. The bill has been introduced into the legislature that would give us a different way to elect commissioners in Beaufort County. And I don't have a problem with changing the way we elect commissioners, contrary to what anybody says. But we're under a federal law, and by the way, I think probably I would be better off turning this over to our attorney, because he has already written a very definitive opinion answering the question that I asked. It is a federal lawsuit. It does not involve the state. The state can't overturn a federal lawsuit. It's a consent agreement, which means we all agreed. And the court, the last sentence in the lawsuit says the court is keeping jurisdiction, which means you're not going to do anything till you go back to the court. With that, I would like for Attorney Francisco to comment on my request, which was really to clarify whether or not the state can do anything that changes the way we elect commissioners in Beaufort County.
As long as that judgment, that order is in place, and it has been for all these years, that the state cannot do that. That's a federal law. It's a federal order. It is based on consent, but the important thing is that it is a federal order. So that motion would have to be brought in the cause, as they say,
for the court to rehear it, and such evidence as may be available to present to the court as to why it should be changed.
When you say the court, you're referring to the federal court?
Federal U.S. District Court, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I'm satisfied with the memorandum that and the advice that the county attorney has given us. If commissioners want a more definitive opinion, which I don't think you can get, I'm willing to vote for it if someone will make the motion.
Hearing none.
Chairman, we've already had a discussion on this, and I think all of us realize that we didn't want to take the county into some position where we were going to be taken to court and we'd end up with a big attorney's fee. And so I think that's the end of it. I think the attorney has just verified what we've all been told all along. This is a federal order.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the state of North Carolina.
Next item, resolution in support of health care for Eastern North Carolina by Commissioner Booth.
As we've been reading the newspaper over the past week about the problem that Vidant is having in reference to losing an estimate of $73 million. And the thing that I want to do is ask us as a body, whether or not we like Vidant operation, our citizens are involved in this kind of action. If Vidant was to lose $73 million, it would hurt us tremendously. And my motion tonight is to ask us as a body to support Pitt County Commissioner's resolution in support of supporting Vidant in keeping this $73 million. Now, the other part that's everybody talking about is the boards. I'm not getting into the board appointments. I just want to know about this. Want us to support them in this possible $73 million loss that was passed Friday by our Senate. The motion is, the resolution is in our packet. I'm not going to read it, but I will make a motion that we support Pitt County Commissioners as other people that have a Vidant partners may be doing the same. Thank you.
Second.
Discussion.
I have some discussion. Commissioner Booth, aren't you on the board of the local Vidant Hospital?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that a conflict?
No, sir. I'm also on the board of Beaufort County Commissioners, and I represent 47,963 people. Is that a conflict?
Well, didn't you make this motion to support Vidant?
I made this motion, yes, and I stand by it. I don't. In order for it to be a conflict, I have to benefit. I'm donating my time to this local board. I don't receive one penny. But if you ask me to recuse myself from voting, I won't do it.
Tell me this, Commissioner Booth. How does supporting this motion to increase hospital cost in Beaufort County help the citizens of Beaufort County?
Mr. Richardson, regardless of what I say tonight, with that corn cob stuck up you against Vidant, it won't change your opinion one bit. Thank you.
Well, you can say that all you want to, but you do have a conflict because what you've done is you made a motion to increase the cost for health care for the citizens of Beaufort County. Now, let me inform the public of another couple of things about this. Vidant has run out screaming to increase Medicare, Medicaid, and everybody has to have it at a tremendous cost to the taxpayers. They have lobbied extensively in Beaufort County when the treasurer tried to reduce health costs. Vidant has lobbied against that. It went to local clubs and lobbied against it. All these people are trying to do is increase health costs for the people of Beaufort County. Actually, there is a scenario that Pitt County, which actually owns Vidant at the end of the day, Pitt County needs to just sell the thing and get out of it because we're becoming embroiled with the legislature and Vidant trying to take over the teaching hospital and still get $35 million a year from the state. Vidant illegally, because they're being sued, they took took 10 members off of their board that they were supposed to have on the board in order to remain a teaching hospital. All of this stuff's published. It's in the Daily Reflector, and it's everywhere. This is another sordid affair of Vidant, who shut down the Belhaven Hospital, and you heard tonight how terrible things are in Belhaven. It is down to 3,500 population, and the reason is it doesn't have a hospital. Vidant promised to keep that hospital open, and then they went and tore the building down with help from Beaufort County Commissioners. Now, it's time for all of us to get real about medical costs. You can go anywhere in the world and get cheaper medical care for the same function than you can in the United States of America because it is a corrupt system. President Trump is making a move right now to do away with secret contracts where insurance companies secretly agree to pay hospitals certain amounts of money. Hospitals agree, and you can't tell anybody what this is. If this is a corrupt system, these people will demand more and more and more money. Everybody in this county is at risk of going bankrupt just for going to the hospital. That should not be. Nowhere else in the world do we have that situation. So we have people that are out wanting to raise medical costs. This is wrong, and I'm not going to vote for it, and I'll never vote for it.
Commissioner Booth.
And to make Mr. Richardson's heart rest a little better, I will withdraw my motion since he says it's a conflict of interest. I do not think it's a conflict of interest, but to make you feel better, I will withdraw it since I'm on their board. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Waters.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this resolution.
I second it.
Yes. Now, we're hearing talk of this $73 million being cut by the General Assembly. What are they cutting? I mean, that's a question. And considering the fact that Vidant is a corporation, they say they're a nonprofit, but they're still a corporation. And they're for profit, a corporation. I mean, CEO makes what, $6-8 million per annum, plus a heck of a package. So they're the largest corporation in this area. What are they cutting? I mean, they're private, right? What are they cutting? Why do we need to be involved? That's a question. I'd love an answer. I mean, if you guys are going to vote for it, please know what you're voting for.
We hadn't voted yet.
Well, then it begs to be answered. Yes.
Mr. Waters. Commissioner Waters.
Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen, we had the discussion earlier, it's been maybe 3 or 4 months ago. The first $40 million that was anticipated that they would lose was the treasurer, the North Carolina State Treasurer, was trying to reduce health care costs and was trying to reduce the reimbursements to the hospital and to the medical. And that was an estimate of $40 million, which is in this number. This latest one is related to the fact that they will no longer be considered to be a teaching university. So now they're going to be reimbursed for Medicaid, just like a private hospital would be. So that's where the total is coming from. Does that answer your question?
I would also like to submit to all of you, why are we going to get involved between the General Assembly and Vidant? Obviously, they have issues they need to work out. From what I'm gathering from you, the General Assembly, through the Senate so far, has stepped up and is in firm support of Treasury Secretary Falwell. And you say that's $40 million of it. So there's another $33 million that is because of a reallocation of Medicaid. Seems like that's an issue that needs to be worked out between the General Assembly and Vidant.
It will be.
And why should we get involved?
We just support Vidant.
I'm not going to support anybody to raise medical
one of the reasons
medical care in this area. I think rightly we should all be that way. Let the corporations work it out. I mean, it's a for-profit system. Surely they make lots of money. It is a for-profit system. Let the marketplace take care of it.
Time to,
No, I don't have anything.
okay, time to vote. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passed. Oh, boy. So we're down to items for discussion. Commissioner Richardson.
I've been here for 23 years, and I'm pretty familiar with how things are supposed to work. But beginning about 4 or 5 years ago, when Republicans took over, became majority of Board of Commissions, a lot of things suddenly started changing. And nobody went and asked anybody, how did we used to do this? And what I'm finding out is I keep hearing about appointments that are been made by chairman, not just Evans, but Gary Brand, Frankie, that they appointed this, they appointed that, and there have been a lot of appointments out there. The chairman has no power to make appointments. And if he does, I want somebody to show me in writing where the chairman can make appointments. This board, in the 20-something years that I've been here, up until then, has made every appointment that's been made. It has to come before the board, and it has to be voted on by the board. So tell me where you have the authority to make appointments.
What appointments?
Any appointments.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Waters. Chairman Waters.
I guess I clarify the reference to me when I was chairman. I did not appoint anybody that this board did not approve. So I want to make sure that fake news is completely over with. Now, he sent an email to the manager wanting to know when I got appointed to the Highway 1764 Association. It was done during our planning session in December when the chairman appointed several vacancies, if I remember correctly.
The chairman did make appointments. Wow.
It was discussed in a public meeting. Apparently, you were asleep at the time.
No, just the chairman bringing up and saying, I'm going to appoint so-and-so to this, and everybody sit there is not the way it works. Appointments is put on the floor, and any commissioner can make a nomination to somebody to serve on to something. And this has been going on, so I'm bringing this up. This is a serious ethical problem for this board, aside from the backroom deals that I accuse you of all the time. But if you're telling me that there's going to be no more appointments that are made with the manager that by the chairman that does not put on the floor for nominations by the whole Board of County Commissioners, we don't have anything else to talk about.
Commissioner Waters.
I like that comment. I was going to say something else, but you're finally coming around, thank God.
Okay. Commissioner Richardson, flood maps.
Oh, I want to ask the manager to give us a report on when we're going to get
I had an email conversation with Mr. Randy Munt with the State Department of Public Safety, and his response was, we submitted the documentation to FEMA for the LFD, the letter of final determination, to be scheduled in their fall schedule, anticipating an October date, which would allow the firms to be effective by April of 2020. So it appears to me they're on the same thing they said the first time.
Commissioner Booth.
I just wanted to say this. After our public hearing tonight, I kept hearing that we as commissioners had worked and talked and read in the newspaper about closing schools. And I'm not going to do as Commissioner Richardson do. I'm not going to ask anybody to state their position, but I'm going to state mine. I have never been to a meeting about closing any school in Beaufort County. I want to say it again. I have never been to a meeting about closing any school in Beaufort County. Now, if nothing else is heard or nothing else is read, I want the public in Beaufort County to know what I just said. I have never been to a meeting about closing any school in Beaufort County. EdTech, Northside, S.W. Snowden, I don't know where this bull come from. If it happens, as we as commissioners, according to the paper that I read and the phone calls that I got last week in Asheville, I want to set the record straight. I have never been to a meeting in reference to closing any school in Beaufort County. Thank you.
Go home tonight.
Well, she knows.
Commissioner Waters?
This is just a follow-up with Commissioner Booth. I think for the people that are here, that are still here, thank you for being still here, and those people that are watching on TV. A lot of things were said tonight as it related to the budget, and specifically to the schools. I want to clarify the NC State study that was done. We did pay for that, but we were there when the information was presented. There were some questions about the numbers. The numbers were given to the NC State group by the Beaufort County Schools. It was not information given by the county commissioners. The Beaufort County Schools budget for 2018-2019 was local, state, and federal was $67,105,000. Let me repeat that. $67,105,000. Now, in our proposed budget, we're not cutting any money to the school system. People have read the newspaper and they're saying we're cutting $2 million. We're not cutting any dollars. So they're getting the same money from us as they got last year. So when you bring people in and you say that they're going to lose their job, I don't get that. I just don't get it. Because we're not cutting the dollars. So the school board must be doing something on their own as it relates to that. One other thing, they came to us and asked for a 3% raise. We're giving our county employees a 2% raise. I will never vote to give the school employees 3% and only give our county employees 2%. Here again, I think we've done a great job looking at the budget. And I think we've treated the school fairly. We have not, the first time that I've heard anything about closing the tech center was in the newspaper. There was never any discussion about closing the tech. If you talk to a school board member, they don't know anything about that. So I don't know where that came from. And that's what triggered the Golden Leaf comment about we don't know whether we should get grant money or not. So there was some misinformation out there tonight, and I just want to make sure that the public understands. I personally support the school system, and I don't like it when people take personal attacks and think that I'm trying to cut $2 million from the budget. We were being asked to do some things like increase their fund balance. The state just says they only have to have 8%. They've never told me what their fund balance is. We had to send back and ask for additional information to break down on numbers that we got. So I think we've done our due diligence, and I think we treat them fairly at this point. I'm willing to consider a change, but I'm going to have more information before I'm willing to do that. I've never said let's close North Side, South Side, S.W. Snowden, the Tech Center. I mean, that's all come from the newspaper and interviews. Nobody's called me and asked me about that part of the budget. Thank you for your listening.
I presume we're not voting for the budget tonight, okay? Am I hearing that? We're not going to do that? Well, I would like for y'all to take the next week to think about this and think on what has transpired tonight and what you guys read in the Washington Daily News and what you've heard from some of your constituents. And think about the misinformation that you say has been accorded to you in this meeting and in the town of Washington and maybe in some sectors of Beaufort County. And think about what it would be like if you did not have these meetings filmed and the public seeing them. And all you had was the information or misinformation that was being bandied about in the community. Now, this is why we started filming these meetings back in 1996, is because what actually transpired in these meetings and what said was transpired in these meetings were two different things often. So think about that again before you cut filming these meetings and putting these meetings out where the public can see them easily.
I had the last one. Talking about closing schools, this board, I don't know of anybody on this board who said anything about closing any schools. And I'm going to say this about Hood, The only person that's ever talked about closing in the schools was Hood, and that was way back when. And so where this stuff is coming from now, I don't have a clue. But I'm going to say this one last thing. The show that the superintendent put on this evening was very, very tacky and tasteless. It was uncalled for. He should have just stood flat-footed and told the truth. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
You got your minute.
Yep. Brian?
I apologize. I just need to follow with one item that I had written down. Commissioner Waters made a statement that he would like for the county manager to send a request to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to locate the nearest red wolf during that time frame, and then for the next 21 days. There wasn't any action that occurred from that. I'm certainly happy to do that, but it would be my impression that if that request came from the Board of Commissioners under a vote, it would carry a little more weight than coming from the county manager. So I would put that out there for your consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion, and to clarify the tracking collars, what I've been told is we're down to maybe 45 that are being tracked of the red wolves. So that's the number I'm looking for, is out of that 45 that's being tracked.
Second.
Let me just add to that. I think when you make a request, and I'm going to vote for this, I think we should ask for what they estimate the population of red wolves is in certain areas by county or however they do it. And also mixed breed should be asked for at the same time. Well, when you do that, the number that are collared and the number that are uncollared, the number they think are collared and the number they think they're uncollared.
Any more discussion? Time to vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0, motion passed.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Goodbye.